The first time I met Evelyn Harper, she was perched at the edge of my newly acquired land like a vulture sizing up its next meal. It was late July, the sun dipping low over Hollow Ridge, casting long shadows across the sprawling pines that framed my cabin. I just pulled up in my beat-up Ford pickup, arms full of groceries and a cheap camping chair, when I heard the sharp clack-clack of heels against the dirt path. I turned, squinting against the glare, and there she was, hands on her hips, lips pursed like she'd just bitten into something sour. "You must be Daniel Grayson," she said, her voice syrupy with that artificial charm that sets your teeth on edge. She wore a crisp blazer despite the summer heat, her blonde hair pulled into a tight bun that screamed control freak. "I'm Evelyn Harper, president of the Hollow Ridge Homeowners Association. We need to have a little chat." I set the groceries down on the tailgate, wiping sweat from my brow. "I don't think we do. This place isn't part of your HOA. Her smile didn't waver, but it tightened, like a snake coiling before the strike. "That's what I wanted to discuss. You see, all the properties around here fall under our per VYEW. It's how we keep Hollow Ridge respectable. High property values, strict standards, you get the idea." I crossed my arms, leaning against the truck. "I bought this cabin because it's not in your HOA. I checked the deeds, the maps, everything. You've got no claim here." Her left eye twitched, just for a second, but she recovered fast. "Maybe not yet, but we're circulating a petition to annex your land into the association. Once it's approved, Dan, you'll have to follow our rules." I couldn't help I laughed. A deep, rumbling sound that echoed off the trees. "Good luck with that." Evelyn's expression darkened, her voice dropping to a low hiss. "I'd think carefully about your attitude, Mr. Grayson. People around here don't take kindly to troublemakers." She turned on her heel and marched back down the path, Leah VYing me, shaking my head. That was my first mistake underestimating her. I figured she was just another petty bureaucrat with too much time on her hands. I was wrong. The next few weeks were a slow descent into madness. It started with the letters crisp, official-looking envelopes with the Hollow Ridge HOA logo stamped in the corner. The first one demanded I trim the wild blackberry bushes along my property line. Apparently, they were unsightly. The second ordered me to repaint my cabin, claiming the weather gray didn't match the approved color palette. The third complained about the old canoe I'd propped against the porch, calling it a VY Sewell nuisance. I ignored them all, tossing them into a growing pile on my kitchen counter. Then the fines arrived. Thick packets detailing charges that made no sense. DULA 154, non-compliance with landscaping standards. DULA 300 for failure to uphold community aesthetics. One even claimed I owe DULA 600 for disrupting neighborhood tranquility because I'd split firewood after sundown. I wasn't part of their damn HOA, but that didn't stop Evelyn from acting like she owned me. I decided to confront her. Her house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a pristine two-story affair with manicured hedges and a welcome mat that felt more like a warning. When she opened the door, her smirk told me she'd been waiting. "Mr. Grayson," she said, folding her arms. "I assume you're here to settle your fines?" I held up the stack of letters, my voice steady but edged with steel. "You've got no authority over me, Evelyn. This is harassment, plain and simple." She tilted her head, unfazed. "You're VYing in our community, Daniel. Whether you signed up for it or not, you're part of it. Pay the fines, or we'll escalate this legally." "You do that," I shot back. "And when a judge throws it out, don't say I didn't warn you." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said, turning to leave. "You are. I thought that'd be the end of it." I was naive. A week later, I woke to the smell of smoke. Not the cozy kind from a fireplace, but something sharp and chemical clawing at my throat. I bolted upright, heart hammering, and stumbled to the window. Orange flickers danced through the trees near my eastern fence line, not close enough to engulf the cabin, but too damn close for comfort. I yanked on my boots, grabbed a flashlight, and ran outside. The night air was thick with haze, the crackle of flames growing louder as I neared the source. Someone had piled dry brush against my fence and set it ablaze. It wasn't a big fire knot yet, but in the dry summer heat, it wouldn't take much to turn it into a disaster. I sprinted to the shed, hauled out my garden hose, and cranked the spigot. Water hissed as it hit the flames, steam rising in angry plumes. It took 10 minutes of cursing and soaking the ground before the fire was out. Leah VY-ing a charred mess of blackened twigs and melted plastic from an old gas can. My hands shook as I dropped the hose, adrenaline still pumping. Then I saw a flicker of movement near the road. A figure in a dark hoodie darted behind a pine tree, too quick to make out their face. I didn't chase them. I had something better. Back in the cabin, I pulled the memory card from the trail cam I'd set up after Evelyn's first VY sit. I'd installed it near the driveway, angled to catch anything suspicious. Sure enough, at 2:47 a.m., the footage showed a hooded figure creeping onto my land, splashing liquid from a can along the fence, then striking a match. The flames caught fast, and the figure bolted. The face was blurry, but the build was familiar, lanky, young male. I had a hunch who it was. By sunrise, I was at the sheriff's office, slamming the memory card onto Deputy Ramirez's desk. Someone tried to burn my place down last night. I've got proof. He watched the footage, his jaw tightening. This is serious, Grayson. We'll run it through the system, check traffic cams in the area. You got any enemies around here? I leaned forward. Evelyn Harper. She's been trying to strong-arm me into her HOA since I moved in. This reeks of her. Ramirez raised an eyebrow. That's a bold accusation. You got anything tying her to this? Not yet, I admitted. But I will. 3 days later, Ramirez called me back. We ID'd your arsonist. Name's Tyler Grayson, a relation to you, I assume. 19, petty rap, sheet mostly vandalism and trespassing. Caught him on a traffic cam a mile from your place. DRIVY-ing a blue Chevy pickup registered to his mother. Evelyn Harper's sister. I smirked. Nephew, huh? That's convenient. He's in custody, Ramirez said. Claims he acted alone, but we're digging deeper. You want to press charges? Oh, yes, I said. And tell him I've got a message for his aunt. I didn't wait for an NVY tatty on. That afternoon, I drove to Evelyn's house, the dash cam footage queued up on my phone. When she opened the door, her face went white as a sheet. Recognize him? I asked, holding up the screen as Tyler's blurry figure splashed gasoline across my fence. She tried to slam the door, but I wedged my boot in the frame. Cops have him, Evelyn. Attempted arson's a felony. And with your threats fresh in my mind, I'm guessing they'll want to chat with you next. Her lips trembled, but she forced a sneer. I had nothing to do with that. Sure, I said, pulling my foot back. But the timing's funny, don't you think? Right after I told you to shove your fines where the sun don't shine. She slammed the door without another word. I walked away, feeling the first stirrings of VY Tory. But I wasn't done up by a long shot. Tyler's arrest gave me leverage, but I wanted more than just a scared kid in handcuffs. I wanted Evelyn gone, so I started digging. It didn't take long to find dirt. Public records showed her house wasn't in her name, it belonged to her estranged husband, Mark Harper. They'd been locked in a bitter divorce for months, and rumor had it he'd stopped paying the property taxes to spite her. I called a friend at the county clerk's office, and he confirmed it. The place was drowning in back taxes nearly due law $40,000 worth. The county was itching to auction it off. I saw my chance. I put in a bid cash, well below market value, but enough to tempt the county. They accepted within a week. Evelyn had no legal claim to the house, and with Mark refusing to bail her out, she was screwed. I showed up at her door with the EVY tie-in notice in hand. Her eyes widened as she read it, her hands shaking. You can't do this. Already did, I said. You've got 30 days to pack up and get out. This place is mine now. You son of a, she started, but I cut her off. Careful, I said, tapping the notice. Wouldn't want to make this personal. She glared at me, speechless for once, and I left her standing there, the weight of her defeat sinking in. Evelyn didn't go quietly. 2 days later, I spotted a crew in HOA-branded polos snooping around my property, clipboards in hand. I marched over, temper flaring. What the hell are you doing? A wiry guy with a nasally voice stepped forward. We're inspecting your land, Mr. Grayson. It's been petitioned for annexation into the HOA. You're trespassing, I snapped. This isn't HOA territory, and it never will be. Get off my land before I call the sheriff. They hesitated, then retreated. But as they drove off, I caught Evelyn watching from the road, her arms crossed, a smug glint in her eye. She wasn't done fighting. A week later, the county approved my purchase of her house. The EVY tie-in went through without a hitch, and I watched from my porch as movers hauled her stuff into a rented truck. She stormed over one last time, her face a mask of fury. You think you've won? She spat. This isn't over, Grayson. I shrugged. Looks pretty over to me. She stormed off, and by nightfall, she was gone. I thought I'd seen the last of her. I was wrong again. A month later, a sleek black sedan rolled up to my cabin. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, his polished shoes gleaming against the dirt. Daniel Grayson, he asked, his tone clipped. Who's asking? Victor Langston, Hollow Ridge Development Group. We're interested in acquiring your property. Not for sale, I said, not bothering to stand. He slid a folder onto my porch railing. We're offering well above market value. Take a look. I didn't touch it. Still not interested. Langston's smile was thin. We've already secured several properties in the area. We're building a modern community here. If you don't sell, we'll pursue eminent domain. You'll get compensated, but you won't have a say. I stood then, towering over him. You're threatening me? Just stating facts, he said, unfazed. Think it over. He left the folder and drove off. I tore it open later, curious despite myself. The offer was generous too generous. Something felt off. Then I saw it. A footnote mentioning consultation Sarah VYCS by one Evelyn Harper. She was back, and this time, she'd brought bigger guns. Expanded narrative, summarized beyond this point. From here, the story escalates into a full-blown war between Daniel and Evelyn's new corporate allies. Here's how it unfolds, keeping the word count in mind. Daniel wakes to a condemned notice on his cabin, citing fake structural issues. He fights it with his own inspection, uncovering that Hollow Ridge Development paid off a shady inspector. He exposes this to the county, but the firm doubles down, pressuring other homeowners to sell. The sun was barely up when I started knocking on doors. I wasn't the neighborly type hell. I'd moved to Hollow Ridge to get away from people, but this wasn't about making friends. It was about Serve VY Val. Evelyn's new corporate puppets weren't just after me. They were coming for everyone who dared to breathe free after her HOA crumbled. First stop was Maggie Pearson's place, a squat little bungalow with peeling yellow paint she'd never dared fix under Evelyn's reign. Maggie was in her 60s, wiry and tough, with hands that looked like they'd wrestled a lifetime of weeds. She opened the door in a faded bathrobe, eyeing me suspiciously. Grayson, she said, voice raspy from years of smoking. What's this about? You hear about Hollow Ridge Development? I asked, leaning against her porch railing. She snorted. Yeah, Fancy Sue came by yesterday, while VYing a check. Told me to sell, or they'd rezone me out. Same play they're running on me. I said, it's Evelyn, Maggie. She's behind it. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. That witch? I thought we were rid of her. So did I. But she's got money and a new name now. We don't stop her. She'll turn this place into her personal playground again. Maggie stubbed out her cigarette on the railing. What are we doing about it? I grinned. We fight. By noon, I'd gathered a small arm in Maggie, old man Pete from down the road, a young couple named the Torreses who'd been fined for a kiddie pool, and half a dozen others who'd suffered under Evelyn's thumb. We met at my cabin, crowding around my kitchen table with coffee and a stack of papers I'd pulled from the county website. Here's the deal, I said, spreading out the documents. Hollow Ridge Development's a shell company. Registered 3 months ago, right after the HOA went down. Guess who's listed as a consultant? Evelyn, Pete growled as arthritis knotted fingers tapping the table. Should have known she'd slither back. More than that, I said, sliding a financial record forward. These are HOA accounts from last year. Look at the withdrawals, thousands funneled into an investment fund. Same day, this development group pops up with startup cash. She stole from you all to bankroll this. The room erupted. That's our money, Maria Torres snapped, her husband nodding furiously beside her. She fined us due la $200 for a damn swing set. She got me for due la $500 over a mailbox, Pete added. Said it wasn't regulation height. We got her, I said, raising my voice over the chaos. Fraud, theft, falsifying records. If we take this to the county, she's done. Maggie leaned forward, eyes glinting. Let's bury her. We spent the next 2 days digging deeper. Pete knew a guy at the bank who slipped us more transaction logs. Maria found old HOA meeting minutes where Evelyn bragged about future investments. By the time we were done, we had a dossier thick enough to choke a lawyer. But Evelyn wasn't waiting around. That night, I caught Tyler lurking near my shed, a can of spray paint in hand. I tackled him before he could bolt, pinning him against the fence. Back for round 2, I snarled, twisting his arm. Let go, he yelped, struggling. I wasn't going to do anything. Then why were you here? I shook him, not hard enough to break anything, but enough to make my point. He went limp, eyes darting. She told me to tag your place. Make it look rundown. Said it'd help the condemnation stick. I shove him back, pulling out my phone to record. Say that again. Louder. He hesitated, then spilled it all Evelyn's orders, the fake violations, the whole scheme. When he was done, I let him scramble off, knowing I had her dead to rights. The air was crisp that evening, the kind of autumn chill that settles into your bones and makes a fire feel like a necessity. I sat on my porch, a mug of black coffee steaming in my hands, watching the last streaks of orange fade from the sky over Hollow Ridge. The trees rustled softly, their leaves a mix of gold and red, and for the first time in months, the silence felt like a gift, not a prelude to the next fight. Evelyn Harper was gone, hauled off in handcuffs 2 days ago after the county hearing turned into her personal reckoning. I'd won. We'd won. But VY Tory has a funny way of Leah VY-ing you restless, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. The hearing had been a spectacle. I'd walked into the county office with my stack of EVY DINSE financial records, Tyler's recorded confession, the forged petitions, and the neighbors at my back. Maggie, Pete, the Torreses, and a dozen others filled the room, their faces set with a mix of anger and hope. Evelyn sat across from us, flanked by a slick lawyer who looked like he charged by the syllable. She'd traded her HOA blazer for a tailored suit, but the smug tilt of her chin was the same. She thought she could talk her way out of it. She was wrong. Linda Carter, the head of zoning enforcement, presided over the meeting, her no-nonsense demeanor cutting through the tension like a blade. Let's get to it, she'd said, flipping open my dossier. Mr. Grayson, you've made some serious allegations. Walk us through it. I stood, voice steady. Evelyn Harper stole from the Hollow Ridge HOA of thousands in dues and fines, funneled into her new venture, Hollow Ridge Development. She forged signatures to push her redevelopment scam, harass homeowners into selling, and sent her nephew to sabotage my property when I wouldn't bend. It's all here, bank statements, VY Deo, testimony. She's a fraud, and she's been playing the county for fools. Evelyn's lawyer jumped in, all polished indignation. These are baseless accusations, MS. Carter, my client has no direct control over the development firm, and there's no proof she authorized any illegal active VY tie. I slid Tyler's confession across the table. Play it. Linda hit the button, and Tyler's shaky voice filled the room. She told me to tag your place. Make it look rundown. Said it'd help the condemnation stick. Evelyn's face went rigid, her lawyer fumbling for a response. The neighbors murmured, their anger simmering louder with every word. Maggie stood next, her voice like gravel. She fined me due law $300 for a birdhouse. Said it clashed with the neighborhood. That money's gone straight into her pocket. Pete followed, slamming his cane on the floor. Due law $500 for a mailbox. I'm on a fixed income, and she bled me dry. One by one, they spoke years of petty tyranny spilling out. Evelyn's lawyer tried to object, but Linda shut him down. I've heard enough. We're escalating this to law enforcement. Evelyn snapped thin, lunging to her feet. This is a witch hunt. Grayson's a liar, and these people are too stupid to see what I did for them. I built this community. You built a prison, I shot back, meeting her glare. And it's crumbling. She lunged at me, but a deputy stepped in, cuffing her wrists as she screamed threats. You'll regret this, Grayson. All of you. They dragged her out, her voice echoing down the hall until it faded into nothing. The room went quiet, the weight of her absence settling over us like a long-overdue exhale. Back on my porch, I took a sip of coffee, letting the bitterness ground me. The county had shut down Hollow Ridge Development that same day, seizing its assets and launching a criminal investigation. Evelyn faced charges fraud, forgery, conspiracy, maybe even arson if they could tie her to Tyler's fire. She'd be lucky to see daylight outside a cell for years. The neighbors had cheered when the news broke, some even cracking open beers in the street. I'd stayed out of it, preferring the solitude of my cabin. I fought for peace, not a party. Footsteps crunched on the gravel, pulling me from my thoughts. Maggie appeared, her bathrobe swapped for a flannel jacket, a cigarette dangling from her lips. Mind if I join you? I gestured to the empty chair. Help yourself. She sat, lighting up and blowing a plume of smoke into the dusk. Heard they found more dirt on Evelyn. Fake permits, bribed inspectors. She was deeper in this than we thought. Good, I said. Let her rot. Maggie chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. You're a stubborn bastard, Grayson. Most folks would have folded months ago. Didn't have a choice, I said, staring out at the trees. This place is mine. She wasn't taking it. She nodded, taking another drag. Well, you did more than save your land. Neighborhood's different now. People are freer, painting their houses, planting gardens. Hell, Pete's got a gnome army in his yard. Evelyn would have had a stroke. I smirked. Sounds like progress. We sat in silence for a while, the night settling in around us. Hollow Ridge was changing. The Torreses had put up that kiddie pool again, bright blue and defiant. A woman down the road had strung fairy lights across her porch. Evelyn's old, no exterior decorations, rule be damned. The place felt alive, not suffocated. I hadn't set out to be some kind of hero, but I couldn't deny the satisfaction of seeing it. Maggie stubbed out her cigarette and stood. Don't get too comfortable, though. People like Evelyn don't vanish easy. She's got friends, money stashed somewhere. Might not be the last we hear of her. Doubt it, I said. She's got no leverage now. Maybe, Maggie replied, her tone skeptical. Just keep your eyes open. She shuffled off, Leah VYing me alone with the crickets and my thoughts. The next morning, I walked the property line, checking the fence where Tyler's fire had scorched the wood. The blackened patches were still there, a reminder of how close I'd come to losing everything. I'd replace it eventually, but for now, it stood as a badge of Sir VY Val. The cabin itself was quiet, the only sound the wind rattling the shutters. I'd bought this place to escape city noise, nosy neighbors, the grind of a life I didn't want. Evelyn had tried to drag me back into that mess, but I'd held my ground. This was my land, my peace, and no one was taking it from me again. I headed inside, tossing another log on the fire, when something caught my eye, a small white rectangle tucked under the edge of my doormat. I frowned, bending to pick it up. A business card, crisp and expensive, with embossed black lettering. Victor Langston, Hollow Ridge Development Group. No phone number, no address, just a handwritten note on the back in sharp, precise script. We'll be in touch. My stomach tightened. Langston, the suit who'd tried to buy me out, the one I'd sent packing with his torn-up offer. I'd assumed he'd crawled back to whatever corporate hole he came from when Evelyn's scheme collapsed. Apparently not. I flipped the card over, studying it, the firelight casting shadows across the text. Evelyn might be gone, but her shadow lingered, and Langston was part of it. I tossed the card into the flames, watching it curl and blacken. Let him come. I'd fought off Evelyn's letters, her fines, her fire, her fraud. I'd taken her house, her power, her freedom. If Langston thought he could pick up where she left off, he'd learn the same lesson she had. This was my ridge, and I wasn't going anywhere. The fire crackled, the card reduced to ash. Outside, the wind picked up, howling through the pines like a warning. I leaned back in my chair, coffee in hand, and let the warmth seep into me. For now, Hollow Ridge was Minursan that was enough. Whatever came next, I'd be ready. A week later, I was splitting firewood when Pete ambled up the path, his cane tapping a slow rhythm. "Got a heads up for you," he said, squinting against the morning sun. "Some fancy car's been parked near the old HOA office. Tinted windows, out-of-state plates. Been there 2 days. Langston," I muttered, setting the axe down. "Maybe," Pete said, "or someone he works for. Just thought you should know." I nodded, wiping sweat from my brow. "Appreciate it." He shuffled off, and I turned back to the woodpile, the axe heavy in my hands. The peace I'd fought for was real, but fragile. Evelyn's arrest had closed one chapter, but Langston's cardan now this car entered at another brewing. I didn't know who he was, what he wanted, or how deep his pockets ran, but I'd faced worse and come out standing. I swung the axe, the crack of splitting wood echoing through the trees. Let them try. Hollow Ridge was free, and I'd keep it that way one swing at a time. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.